You have been told that the Great Flood was an act of divine justice, a necessary cleansing of a sinful, wicked world by a righteous creator. You have been lied to. The Great Flood was not a story of justice. It was a story of unprovoked, absolute genocide. And the most terrifying part? It isn't just a myth. It is a historical fact, buried beneath the dirt, waiting to be uncovered. Welcome to Gods and Legends. Today we are not looking at fairy tales. We are looking at the geological and archaeological proof that human civilization was violently erased from the face of the earth. We are a species with amnesia, living on a graveyard. To find the origin of this nightmare, we must go back, long before the Bible was ever written, deep into the scorching sands of ancient Mesopotamia. The year is 1872. A British museum scholar named George Smith translates a shattered, 2,700-year-old Assyrian clay tablet. What he reads shocks him so deeply that he physically collapses. He had just translated the Epic of Gilgamesh, a text that predates the book of Genesis. The Sumerian text didn't describe a loving God hitting the reset button. It described the Anunnaki, the first gods, specifically the sky god Enlil. Enlil didn't flood the earth because humans were evil. According to the ancient texts, he flooded the earth because human cities had become too noisy, and they were interrupting his sleep. The first recorded apocalypse in human history was ordered because a tyrant god was mildly annoyed. Enlil commanded the waters to rise, intending to drown every man, woman, and child in absolute silence. It was only because the trickster god Ea secretly warned a mortal named Utnapishtim, instructing him to build a massive wooden vessel, that humanity survived. The gods didn't save us. We survived in spite of them. But was this just a dark fantasy of the Sumerians? Or were they trying to warn us about something they actually saw? For over a century, modern historians laughed at the Gilgamesh Tablet. They called it primitive poetry, a localized river flood exaggerated by superstitious minds. They laughed until 1997, when two Columbia University geologists, William Ryan and Walter Pittman, stopped looking at myths and started looking at the ocean floor. They discovered that roughly 7,600 years ago, the Black Sea was not a sea at all. It was a massive, isolated freshwater lake, surrounded by incredibly fertile, heavily populated land. Early human civilizations thrived on its shores. They built homes, they farmed, they lived in peace. And then, the Mediterranean Sea breached the Bosporus Strait. This was not a slow rise in sea level. It was a violent, catastrophic collapse of the Earth itself. The ocean tore through the land, creating a waterfall 200 times more powerful than Niagara Falls. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated terror. You are an ancient farmer. You wake up in the dead of night to a sound that defies description, a roar so loud it shakes the bones in your body. You look to the horizon, and you see a wall of black, roaring salt water moving toward you at highway speeds. There was no time to pack, no time to pray. The water level rose an astonishing 15 centimeters a day. It swallowed tens of thousands of square kilometers of land. In the year 2000, the legendary explorer Robert Ballard, the man who discovered the Titanic, sent underwater robots down into the pitch-black depths of the Black Sea. 300 feet below the surface, swallowed by the eternal dark, his cameras captured the impossible. Ancient submerged shorelines, freshwater shells dating perfectly to the time of the catastrophe, and the chilling, preserved remains of human structures. Rectangular wooden buildings sitting exactly where they were built, now buried under millions of tons of black water. The people who fled that apocalypse didn't write books. They ran. They scattered across the ancient world, and they carried with them the traumatic memory of the day the ocean swallowed the earth. But if the Black Sea anomaly was the only event, the story would end there, a tragedy for the Middle East and Eastern Europe. But it does not end there. Because as anthropologists began to travel the globe translating the texts of isolated civilizations, a horrifying pattern emerged. The story of the Great Flood is not unique to the Middle East. It is everywhere. Researchers have documented over 200 independent flood myths from cultures that had absolutely no physical contact with one another. Travel to the dense, blood-soaked jungles of Mesoamerica. The Aztec codices speak of the Son of Water, an era that ended when a massive deluge fell from the sky, transforming all humans into fish just to survive. Travel across the Pacific to ancient China. Their earliest legends speak of the goddess Nua, desperately trying to patch the shattered sky as an apocalyptic flood tore the land apart. Travel to the high mountains of ancient Greece, where the god Zeus, disgusted by humanity, unleashed a flood so severe that only Deucalion and his wife survived by drifting in a wooden chest. Travel to the indigenous tribes of North America, to the Hindu epics of India. 200 cultures, 6 different continents, separated by thousands of miles of impassable oceans and mountains. They do not share the same gods. They do not share the same language. They do not share the same skin color. But they all share the exact same nightmare. A world completely consumed by water, a chosen few surviving on a vessel, a bird sent out to find land. You cannot explain this away as a coincidence. You cannot claim that 200 separate civilizations hallucinated the exact same apocalypse. This is not a shared myth. This is global PTSD. It is the genetic, traumatic memory of a human race that was nearly driven to extinction. So, what could cause a trauma so massive that it scarred the psychology of the entire human race? The Black Sea breach was devastating, but it was localized. To find the true origin of the Great Flood, science had to dig deeper, not into mythology, but into the ice and the cosmic dust. Welcome to the Younger Dryas Impact Hypothesis. Approximately 12,900 years ago, human hunter-gatherers and early agricultural societies were spreading across a warming Earth, and then the sky caught fire. A massive comet, or a swarm of fragmented asteroids, entered the Earth's atmosphere. It didn't just hit the ground. It detonated in the air across North America, Europe, and parts of the Middle East. The heat was so intense it instantly liquefied solid rock. Scientists have found the physical proof, a thin, dark layer of soil stretching across continents known as the black mat. Inside this layer are nanodiamonds, melted platinum, and magnetic spherules, materials that can only be created by the extreme temperatures of a cosmic impact or a nuclear explosion. But the fire was only the beginning. The impacts struck the Laurentide ice sheet, a massive glacier covering much of the northern hemisphere, miles thick. The unimaginable heat melted millions of tons of ice in a matter of days. Though, the result was a catastrophic pulse of meltwater. Sea levels didn't just rise, they violently surged upwards by over 400 feet. Entire coastlines where the vast majority of ancient human populations lived were instantly erased. Glacial lakes the size of modern countries burst their banks, sending walls of water thousands of feet high tearing across the continents. The world burned, and then it drowned. The Gilgamesh Tablet is not a myth. It is a desperate testimony. The submerged ruins of the Black Sea are not legends. They are a crime scene. The platinum-laced black mat layer is not a theory. It is the physical scar of a murdered world. The Great Flood happened. It wiped out civilizations so ancient we don't even know their names. It forced humanity back into the Stone Age, leaving the survivors to huddle in caves and pass down the trauma of the water through stories, until the real history faded into mythology. We are not the pinnacle of civilization. We are just the survivors of the latest cycle. Vo. Did you spot the glowing hourglass of time hidden in the archaeological mud? The first mortal to timestamp it gets pinned to the top of the realm. Now, it is time for you to face the dark truth. Let's debate in the comments. Do you believe the flood was purely a cosmic accident from a comet? Or did the Anunnaki gods actually pull the trigger to silence humanity? Tell me your theory below. The water is always waiting. Until next time.